All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Silas.
And I'm Aaron.
And I'm Zane.
Today has been a wild one, so get ready for a really fun podcast.
Yes.
What'd you say?
It's a Tone Loc song, I think. Wild, Wild One. Anyway, that's Wild, Wild West. It's a different one.
Wow.
Like I was saying,
Will
We're
Smith
ready.
song.
That's Wild, Wild West.
Oh, yeah.
Will Smith has a song.
He does.
Wild
And he's an
West.
actor.
Yeah.
And he married a psychopath.
He's
He's bad at everything he does.
multi-talented.
Sorry, Will Smith. If you're listening, shout out to you.
Yeah, come on the podcast.
You can come on the podcast.
I love the Fresh Prince.
Yeah, there you go.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yep.
Never watched it.
No.
We didn't
You
watch
weren't allowed.
secular
I
TV.
don't watch secular TV. Yeah.
That's right. Speaking of, that's what we're talking about. Today's episode
TV?
is Zane's secular upbringing and why it ruined him.
Well, you know what's crazy is I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of things, but
Neither
then
were we.
some of the things I was allowed to watch was like, what?
Could you watch SpongeBob?
Yeah.
See, that's horrible.
I know.
Could you watch Caillou?
No.
We weren't allowed to watch Caillou. Remember Caillou,
I don't know what that
the
is.
bald kid that was a brat?
Okay. We weren't. I don't let you guys even watch Leave It to Beaver because the parenting. Sometimes we did as a joke.
Yeah, no, you were like, we're not watching this. And then
So
if
we
like
are.
we were bored, you're like, okay, fine.
But remember how the discipline?
Oh, yeah.
No seconds on dessert.
No seconds on dessert is a crazy take.
No seconds.
We watched a lot of Andy Griffith.
Oh yeah.
A lot of I Love Lucy.
That was
Those
annoying.
are great morals in I Love Lucy. You know?
Are they? They ended up getting. They didn't even sleep in the same bed.
I know. That's what
Well,
I'm
that was
saying.
old TV.
Yeah.
That was Dick Van Dyke, too.
Yeah, that was every TV show.
Yeah.
Well, all I know is Andy Griffith will always be the best.
Maybe it's
Before
'cause-
Floyd had a stroke.
Yeah.
After that, they went downhill.
But have you
was
ever
sad.
thought about how the Mayberry was such a happy town? Have you ever heard why that was?
Why?
It's a segue.
Well, the only person in the entire TV show of Andy Griffith's show that was married was the town drunk. Everybody else was single. So future families deal with that.
Great. This is
Yeah.
a great way to start
Segue.
today.
You might want to re-snap. All right, let's go.
I thought you were going to say he was really good at resolving conflict.
He is.
Oh.
None of them were married.
Speaking
They
of
all live their own
resolving.
lives for themselves,
Wow.
except the drunk.
Well, Aunt B came to live with them, and
Yeah, but they weren't married.
I want
No,
an
but,
Aunt B.
but
You know
that
how-
was sacrificial on
It
Aunt
was.
B's part. She came to live to help take
I
care
want
of.
an Aunt B.
I would love an Aunt B. Oh, just cooks, makes weird comments,
Yeah, and her voice is.
and like helps me with. Well, I'm not dating anybody, but she helps Andy with his dating life.
She did. That would annoy him. All right, it annoyed him too.
So, speaking of conflict, teaching your children biblical conflict resolution.
Dun dun dun.
This is a interesting subject this week because Zane and I have been experiencing a lot of conflict.
With each other or with like
No, not with each
your
other.
kids, your kids,
You know,
Just
everybody.
oh,
If they're-
your peers.
if they're
Except for my wife. Honestly.
if they're in
You married a perfect woman. So, Lizzie, if you're listening, good job.
She's close to perfect.
Lizzie, if you're listening, I hold you to an unrealistic expectation.
Yes, you're on
That's
a
what you
pedestal.
just said. Okay, well, just making sure we're clear. So anyway, Zane, get us started.
Well, here's the thing. I thought about this because you guys put me in charge of
Yes,
coming
content.
up with content.
You're the
for
director of content.
The podcast episodes. And I realize on almost all of my calls that I have with families, this comes up.
Yep.
Right. And what's interesting to me is a lot of times I'm talking to dads that are like managers or CEOs of multi-million-dollar corporations, or they have some level of responsibility where they have people under them, and I know that they're having to handle like conflict resolution. But when it comes to, there we go, bump the mic. Whenever it comes to
Their sons or daughters.
their daughters, it's almost like they're not sure how to bring that into the home or bring that into the familial relationship.
Right.
And so a lot of what I'm telling them, really, they kind of already know, which is interesting. But how that's actually applied to their kids is kind of the foreign part. So I felt like this might be something that would probably not hit for everyone, but would definitely be worth talking about. So, yeah. And that's basically what we've done you've ran this school for
Quite a while.
quite a while.
Opening comment as well. So my wife, there's a book that I wish I wrote it, but I didn't. Ted Tripp wrote called Age of Opportunity. And in that book, he basically drives home the point that, especially in teen years, because they're venturing outside your home, they're getting a lot more opportunities. as parents, we tend to see this, and you've got this in the notes here. We have all this conflict. We have this drama. Our life is just sort of disrupted. And when our lives are disrupted, we get frustrated, we get tired, we get even mad, right? But he's like, you see it as an opportunity, right? Now all of a sudden it's good because this is discipleship time. This is like how to help them grow time. And if you're not frustrated, you'll do a better job. So there's two ways to not get frustrated, I think. And I don't want to jump ahead too much, but like the idea of parenting in a moment of non-conflict, right? So if you are discipling your kid and it's a Tuesday scheduled meeting, and you've noticed in your son, let's say a backbiting spirit or a slandering tongue, you can bring it up at the discipleship time. Show some good verses, give some examples of where you've maybe seen it himself or others, and then just talk about, is this who you want to be? As opposed to he's in the living room with his sister and he's saying something about a kid at school or about their teacher or about even his sister or whatever, and then you try to approach it. It's like instantly defensive, instantly, it's a sort of not a fight per se, but definitely more drama. So that'd be one thing. And the other would be a distance from the situation. So we get, like just yesterday, we had a new student come to Future Men, and the mom was just like going on and on and on about like how grateful she was that we were just like them. Like the books that we've read, the type of church we attend, how she has managed her parenting style, what she's doing for consequences. She was so happy. And it's funny because you're thinking, well, if we do the exact same thing,
We're doomed.
what's going to work? But she's right, because the reality is you want the same messages. You want even the same tactics. But sometimes a kid just has to step outside his situation because there's too much of a history almost. And their emotions amp up immediately, maybe because conflict resolution hasn't happened over and over. Or maybe just general rebellion. The kid's just going through a phase, not a phase, but like he's embracing self-love to the sense of like nothing else matters except what I'm wanting to do right now, and I'll sacrifice this relationship to get it.
Yeah.
He would never maybe say those words, but that's what's happening.
Well,
Age of Opportunity. Read the book. Amazing. Ted Tripp, if you listen, come on the podcast.
I'll put it on the show notes.
All right, good.
The invite.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
So I feel like with conflict, you have like in the family, in my head, there's like 3 levels. And I want to hear your thoughts on both of you. So there's the first level, which I think is the foundation, because kids are going to learn how conflict is really dealt with primarily through watching who?
Yep. Well,
mom and dad.
Mom
first,
and dad.
yes.
So I think there's mom and dad, then parent on child, and then child on child.
yes.
So let's start down sort of at the root. How do you model this from the very get-go? Whether your kid's 2 or 18, it shouldn't really change. How do you model marriage conflict in the family in front of your kids?
Well, and I think I want to talk about this. This is really important because there's a lot of varying opinions and like really strong opinions about this very thing, how you handle conflict. Because in some families I know, it's been, we never fight. We never have an argument. We never have a discussion in front of the kids. In some other families, it's like, oh, no, it's actually healthy that we have disagreements because I want my kids to know that even mom and dad disagree sometimes, but they can come to a resolution. So I'm pretty new to marriage, and I don't have any kids. Aaron, how have you and Lori handled those types of situations?
Raging arguments.
A better question
all the
would
time.
be, Silas, how did mom and dad handle these arguments?
There we go.
Like I already said.
Resolution. Thank you. You're right. That's your mom, but how did I handle it? Lori, if you're listening,
She's not.
She's not. I have an answer for this too, but you go first.
So my perspective was that there were very few times in my life. There was one time when I remember I was in, this is a funny story probably, it's kind of traumatic. I was coloring on the counter.
Okay.
And
Like
all
on a piece of
my
paper on the counter?
Yes,
Or,
I was obedient.
Okay.
All of my siblings were in the basement. This is at the old house. And you and mom were fighting in the living room.
Like fist fighting?
Yes. And I was excited because I didn't really catch what was going on. And all I kept realizing was I'm up past my bedtime and nobody knows.
Of course.
And I'm like, mom and dad
there you go.
are
Fighting
busy.
in front of kids doesn't
But
matter.
then you guys started fighting more. And then I remember mom was crying.
Oh, wow.
And then at some point you both realized I was in there. So you sent me to bed. I did not get spanked or get in trouble.
Good.
And the next day you both came and apologized to me, even though I was like 4. I mean, I genuinely have no idea. This is like one of my very early memories for fighting in front of me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like that was obviously like very impactful to me. That was the only time in my life I remember you guys, like, I would say there's a difference between like good, healthy conflict and like fighting. I think you guys were like fighting. I don't know. The rest of the time though, you guys would have conflict all the time. And I just remember it was never like that big of a deal. Like a lot of times it was in front of us. Every now and then you guys would go to the bedroom to figure something out. But I feel like you guys usually did a pretty good job of coming out and letting us know like things were okay.
Right.
And I don't know who said this once, but they said whether or not you fight in front of your kids isn't the issue. It's whether or not you resolve your conflict in front of your kids. Because if all they ever see is the argument and the bad stuff and they never understand that you guys like figured it out, then that's bad. But if they see you actually resolving it and being on the same team and supporting one another directly after, that's where it becomes, quote, healthy. So I don't know. What were your guys' strategies?
Well, one, you said it. So with little kids especially, we've tried very hard not to raise our voices in front of little kids at each other. We don't really fight much anyway, to be honest. So it's kind of easier, but there's not everybody, is it an easier relationship? So I understand that, but I'd be very cautious to like not raise your voice in front of the little kids because their security is in mom and dad being the core of the family. Never wondering if daddy will stop loving mom. Yeah. If the kids have any experience at all with like divorce, abandonment, like maybe friends at school, or maybe your own past,
or if they're adopted.
Yeah. So those kind of things are really going to like play in. But if you're a core family and you're a nuclear family, it's all just you guys, then yeah, just with the little kids, I'd be super cautious in not getting them to where they're in fear, right? And then as they get older, I would definitely include them in the sense of just talking about the arguments in discipleship, talking about the strategies in discipleship, because your sons are going to learn to be husbands, and they will learn from example, no doubt. But if they don't know the motive behind some of the arguments, if they don't know why this argument mattered, if they don't see you, like what you said, ask for forgiveness when the emotions got in the way and you actually were in sin in that argument, then all you demonstrated to them is maybe might makes right, or it's okay if daddy hurts mom with his words, because kids do it too. I mean, kids will definitely pick up on what you do. So you got to set an example for them, and we'll have something else to add to that. But what else have you got, or what are you thinking?
Well, you wrote something down, so you take precedence.
Yes, I'm taking notes now. One thing I wanted to say though, because you said the most important thing is resolving the conflict in front of the kids. I want to add on to that because I think another aspect of it is this idea of like fighting or viewing conflict as the same as fighting. Because I think that is maybe where our heads go a lot of times whenever conflict happens, because we've seen so many poor examples, maybe just in culture or maybe in our own families. But I don't think that should be the assumption. Like conflict doesn't have to be fighting, because I think when you hear fighting, maybe you don't mean this, but I tend to think like yelling, like throwing things, like big emotions.
Right.
And I don't think that should be something that you do in front of the kids. So I think that's like different. Yeah, that's different than just conflict. Conflict is you two have a disagreement and you're talking through it. Yeah. But it can be respectful. It can be controlled. And it should be, I think, if we're talking about in front of the kids.
Yeah, and I would definitely be, so as a I don't know what you call it, caveat, they're going to watch what you do, right? And whatever the conflict is, typically it's extremely just temporary.
Yeah.
Right? But the result of your using unkind words to your wife or speaking in a harsh verse to your wife, those are way more than temporary. That's like, wow, this is what my dad does to my mom. And it's now those can be carried on by the kids. They'll think it's okay to yell at mom or each other, or they'll become insecure or whatever it is, So things like night terrors, pee in the bed, those aren't all caused by bad relationships, but a lot of them are. And it's like the trauma kids experience can definitely like affect them immediately, but also into their own marriages, into their relationships with siblings. So you got to think about it. The other tactic I was going to ask or talk about was like seeking outside counsel. So
wait, before you get to that, because I think that's save it for the end, because I think that's at the culmination of all this.
Sure.
But real quick, to finish on the kids' perspective.
Little kids.
Well, and big kids.
Okay.
I think this was because you mentioned like if you have any experience with divorce or separation or any of that. When Jules and I got married, a huge problem where we had to seek outside counsel in our first year of marriage was dealing with conflict, because I don't like conflict, but I also was like, it was the expectation. Like, we're married, so we're probably going to get in arguments. We're very different people. We have very different personalities, so we're going to have disagreements and differing opinions. And so let's just talk through it and, sometimes like argue through it, and that's what it takes, right? And then you get to the end.
Love each other.
Yeah. And I was never in my head was there any inkling of, oh, we disagree about this issue, so she's probably going to leave. But her experience growing up was any fight would always escalate. It would always end in yelling, and then ultimately culminated in divorce, right? And so for her, any fighting meant,
this is where we're heading.
This is where we're going to go, because this is my experience. And so I think it's massively important to realize the implications this has on your kid's future marriage. Even like, I think we think it's not a big deal, but I think it truly is with the marriage conflict. And so, I don't know where I was really going with that. Just to say it, just to reiterate your point, like experiencing it personally, it sucks.
Yeah. So as you're raising your children, right, you and your wife, just like with our parenting style, you need to have a common ground on this is what arguing looks like in front of the kids. And if we can't resolve it in front of the kids because we are too heated, agree to step back.
Yeah.
And then like some friends in our parenting class, they have, I forget what the word was, but they have a word when they're in the middle of a conflict in front of their kids. They just say the word, and it means this is an 8:30 conversation.
Probably enchilada.
Maybe it was. It was something. But it means because their kids are little, right? The kids don't know why you would throw that word in there. They don't even care. All they know is when they hear this word, all of a sudden mom and dad aren't arguing anymore. And it takes self-control because we want to win.
Oh, yeah.
We want our point to be crossed, especially if it seems imminent, but it typically isn't. But your effect on the kids with the tone is imminent. That will last. It will stick. It will affect them. So
I think a good rule of thumb here is when, like, if Jules and I are arguing, I mean, at the end of the argument, we almost always have to ask forgiveness for like overstepping in some area, like whether it wasn't listening or going too far. But I think we do have the ground rules, I guess you could call them, or we've sat down and talked about like when we're in conflict, like we don't raise our voice, we don't get animated. And if it gets to that point, either one like has the power to say like, hey, we're stopping and we're just going to step back till we're like relaxed again. Because I don't think it's just stupid. I would challenge, I think there's exceptions to this, but like think about like every big fight you and mom have ever had. Like, you remember the fight and then people are like, what was it about? Like,
no clue.
I don't know.
Because
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It never really matters. I mean,
sometimes
there's exceptions.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it doesn't matter. We just get super emotional, and the emotions are what we're feeling and not the real argument. So I think having the maturity, like you said, to step back and be like, we'll save this for later because it's not appropriate in front of the kids is great. And then I think if you overstep in front of your kids, going the mile where you come to them and talk through it like you guys did and apologize for it is a big step.
So there's and this is like, I don't know if this is in your notes, Zane, but like biblical conflict, right, resolution. The hard part is with kids, you have to be really careful because they need the same sort of respect, but you also have to, you're training your kids by your visuals, right? They can't walk away from conflict.
Yes.
So like if mom's correcting the kid and they're in disagreement about like going to the friend's house or whatever, and the kid's getting mad and he just turns around and leaves and goes to his room. He's like, well, I'm getting mad, so I'm leaving. Now you're dealing with disrespect. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, so I think with mom and dad, there's like hey, the kids know they were talking about something serious. And if they're really little, don't worry about it. You're just setting an example by your words and tone. But with teenagers, middle school type kids, then you're talking about like, okay, yeah, we were fighting, but we've chosen, right, to go cool down for a minute, not because we weren't getting our way, because I don't want to say something I'll regret.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in this because we've had some situations where Lori's done that. I'm pretty like I could care less. I get pretty even keeled on most things, but she will get heated pretty quick. And I always feel terrible.
Man, you're perfect.
She always feel pretty terrible. I feel pretty terrible when she'll say, I'm leaving because I'm going to say something I'm going to regret. So she'll leave the house, and I'm like, I want to follow her. I want to stop her and say, let's just fix it. Who cares? Which I've tried it. Doesn't work. But you're sitting there, and it's like, this is super awkward in front of the kids because it's like, hi, we're dumb. We can't figure out our problems. Now, I don't know if kids are necessarily thinking that.
I've never noticed.
I think it just makes it uncomfortable. And it's just like, but it's life.
Well, I think some people are like when Jules and I first started doing that, where I was like, hey, it's okay to like take a break and just get your emotions in check, sort of.
Yeah, just cool down. Yeah.
There's a difference between that, and the difference is the communication to say, hey, I'm taking a break, not because I don't want to finish this, not because we're on the same team and I want to figure it out, but because I'm just like too like into it right now. I need to take a break. Zane, your verse here, James 4:1-2. Well, I'll just read 1. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? And I think that's like exactly what we're talking about here. And it's so, do you remember the Bells at college? They used to tell the story. He used to tell the story of she got super mad and tried to leave, so he just followed her and was like yelling under a door at her in the bedroom. We're like, come on, we need to figure this out. He's like, believe it or not, we're marriage counselors now, but that was not the solution.
Yeah.
And so having the maturity to do that, I think, is massive.
And another point is don't like physically hold them when they're wanting to leave or start laughing. They don't appreciate that either.
I hope that's not from personal experience.
That was one of the only times that my wife has actually physically struck me. And I laughed because it didn't hurt. I'm thinking,
can't imagine why you tried to hold her. Oh, come here, babe. Just let me hug you. You're mad at me? Oh, physical affection.
I didn't want her to leave me. I'm like, we can figure this out. And I just needed respect for space, which I did it in the early days. That was like, man, we were still living in Bakersfield. But
that is funny. But it's hard because it's like you do feel like you failed.
Oh, yeah.
But as soon as they're gone, it's so funny. As soon as the fight stops for just a minute, you're like, oh, I should just ask for forgiveness and we should be done.
Yes.
It's like, this is stupid. This is just emotions. This is just passions at war. I'm going to say that next time. I need to take a break. My passions are at war within me. That sounds way better than
that's a good thumbs
I'm
up.
going to say something that I regret.
This is short. Gabriella.
Okay,
short.
So that's on marriage, and we can answer more questions on that. But if you want to hear more on marriage, go listen to Living in Harmony, which I'll link in the show notes as well. Matt and Amber probably deal with this. What about, that's the parent-on-parent conflict. What about should we do parent-on-child conflict or child-on-child conflict? Because they're both a lot different.
Yep, they are.
Yeah, let's do parent-on-child because that will come first.
Perfect. Give it to us.
Unless we have twins, then it could come at the same time.
Oh, it does.
It's good for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's my favorite thing.
I'm glad
It's Dad's favorite remark whenever I tell him I'm struggling. It's good for you. Thanks.
You're a better man.
Well, I think it's interesting because conflict kind of evolves with your kids over time. When they're like 1 and 2, I was watching my friend Luis last night. His daughter was not wanting to eat her chicken. And so she's like sitting there and she like pushes the chicken away and he's like, Emelina, eat your chicken. And then she just kind of like grins and then like grabs it. And then she like puts it back down again. And he's like, Emelina. And like, there's a point where she's like, okay, he's serious and I have to eat it now. But there's like, even at that age, it's just so funny to me every time I see a kid that's like testing the boundaries.
Yep.
So I think that's really where conflict starts, is when they start testing the boundaries that you as a parent have put in place. And they're going to do that. So how do parents be prepared for that and handle that in a way? Because reality is, this is why a lot of discipline, I think, has gotten like traditional discipline in the home has gotten a bad rap, because parents don't really know how to handle these big emotional like conflicts with their kids.
Right.
They let their emotions take over.
Yeah, they get to that point.
Yeah. Like, there's a video floating around the internet a few months ago where this mom was like, beating her child. And we're not just talking like a good old fashioned beating. We're talking like abuse for sure.
Oh, a good old fashioned beating is different.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like Andy Griffith,
Yeah. Behind the woodshed.
But she was angry. She had lost control.
Yep.
And she gets, arrested because it's abuse, right? But it probably didn't start like that in the home. It started with all these like little conflicts that are building up over time, not being dealt with the way that it probably should be. So how do you start off on a good foot with those little kids?
Yeah, so
I'll answer.
go ahead. Well, you were
I just want to say one thing real quick. It's funny you said be ready, because I think you start off by realizing you'll probably never be ready because it's so emotional. Like the other day, my daughters they're like 18 months, and one of them was being so kind and so sweet, and she was hugging me and kissing me, and it makes you feel so good as a dad. And then I put her down. I was like, okay, it's time for bed. And she looks at me, she goes, no, and genuinely turns around and runs away.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, we were just there. We were just having such a good moment,
It's
and then you're
always
just going to
after the good moment.
no.
We can do the future men the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Except they're 17.
yeah,
It's like
not 17
no
months.
difference. And it's so weird.
And it's so weird. And so the first step to being ready is realize you'll probably won't be ready because it's always going to be emotional, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was just my 2 cents.
But that's what I mean. Not ready in the sense of like you're going to do it perfectly, but ready in the sense of expecting that the emotion comes up. So like being prepared for the emotion looks like those non-conflict moments that you talked about.
Discipleship, yeah.
Yeah, in discipleship. And as a couple, I think already communicating about how are we going to handle these situations when they come up. Like if I'm really emotional, maybe I need my wife to step in and handle this, or vice versa,
Yeah.
So again, this is where the ground rules ahead of time are everything. If you don't have a good system, you're better off not digging the hole deeper. You're better off just sort of taking a step back and thinking, okay, for the next, we're watching these parenting videos for the next thing. If it's growing kids, 18 weeks, and you're thinking, oh, it's too long. I need the answer now. Reality is, you really don't. You can step back a little bit, and you may have to make up some ground. But if you're both on the same page, you have this is where we're going. Yeah. So like with little kids, it might be, we know that for X, Y, and Z, this is how we discipline, right? We isolate the kid, or they're going to need a spank, whatever it is.
Well, I think it's when we say create like your system beforehand, it sounds overwhelming, but what you just said is true. So just another example with the girls right now, like one thing they'll do is if they're eating and they don't want what's in front of one of them, mainly throws her head back and starts yelling and just like throwing a fit. And so after she's like 2 or 3 times, we're like, okay, what's our solution here?
Yeah. And
not because we have to like come up with the perfect solution, just so we can be consistent.
That's it.
And whether mom's home or dad's home, if she does the thing, she's going to get the exact same response every time from either one. And so it's not like that big of a deal. It's noticing patterns in your kids, because they're going to show you patterns of sinful behavior, and just having the exact same response just ready to go because you don't think about it. It's easy.
Yeah, and as an encouragement to everybody out there, you're listening to a podcast, I hope, right now that's like on parenting, so you're wanting help. Just know that at every age of kid, and we have the resources that's on our school page, it's on our show notes, this has already been done. So the work has been done. You just got to get out there and say, okay, I'm going to have to take some time and read this. We do it for our car maintenance. We do it for our home maintenance. We do it for our degrees of, whatever our job is. We'll go do like in-services to learn, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to parenting, we're just like, I'll just yell a little louder, or I'll just ignore it. And my life is going to be a living hell at home. But that's a phase. We'll call it phases to justify why we're not doing anything. And it's like, you can't do it. You gotta like dig in. I mean, if you want to have children that you enjoy, right? And I think it's either you're slowly pushing them away. This is what the mom said yesterday. It was interesting. She said, I feel like he's 15 now. We're not addressing, he's not responding to what we're doing now. I feel like by the time he's 18, I can't wait till he's out of my house. And she said, I don't want that feeling. And I agree with her. And it's like, so when the kids come there, the one thing we start doing immediately is, okay, so now what's going on at home? What are you reading? What are you doing to prepare home to be different? And if the goal is, if they're older, they're just going to graduate future men and then go off on their own, okay, that's fine. But what about the kids that are 14, 15? It's like, well, they're going to go home. So home's got to change. Something's got to be in place, and it's always a system. And it's not our system. It's not the future men system. It's like, for most people, it's a huge combination of like, the different resources you've read, you've watched, and some is through experience. That's fine, right? But if it's always through your own personal experience, it's like Russian roulette every time.
Yeah.
And it's like you're just counting on like when people start getting angry and they'll start raising their voice and then pretty soon they're yelling, raising your voice a little bit at the beginning, the kids respond. And then they get used to it. It's kind of like drugs. You get a tolerance for your parents' anger. They know when you're serious and how long it's going to take. And it's like, they'll play you. Kids are, they're selfish little human beings, just like mom and dad. So get a system, be on the same page, and let that system grow with you. Meaning, like, if it's, for like, we tell in our parenting class all the time, 0 to like 8, let's say, is mainly just learning to obey. That's it. There's not a whole lot of discipleship going on yet. There's very little explaining the rules. Just get them to obey. And your life becomes comfortable and becomes kind of fun for you as a parent. And that's when most parents think, see, I've got it under control. Now I quit. And I'm like, okay, you're going to lose them really fast. Because if kids don't really have the reason for what you're doing and don't understand the spirit behind the law, they're not going to keep doing it.
That's where like the whole rules without relationship thing comes from, is when you don't make the transition.
Yep. So that's where discipleship comes in play, right? And about that age, I mean, literally 8 to 10, let's say, you might start super mild, right? Part of it's in your family worship. You're talking about themes in there, like, kind words, maybe you're memorizing scripture on it, whatever. And then by the time they're 13, 14, it's literally you're purposefully sitting down with them for the sake of growth, not when they're in trouble, right? I can't stand, and it happens, but like if I tell my kid, hey, I need to see my bedroom for a minute. And it might just be I need to ask them a question about something I saw in their behavior or in their siblings' behavior, and I want to get their perspective. But they instantly think, what?
What did I do?
Yeah, and I'm the same way. If I got a phone call from the sheriff or I got a phone call from, they're fundraising, and I always see a sheriff, I'm like, oh, great. What happened, right? And it's like you think our first response is always self-protective.
Yeah.
So we get scared, and it's like so do our kids. But if they all of a sudden as you're training them, they realize my mom and dad pull me aside all the time and talk to me. I'm probably not in trouble. Yeah. This is just they want to help me. Like this is just a growth time. I honestly think I remember Hawken especially when we did our discipleship. He would love to do discipleship. That he was one kid that I think enjoyed it. Maybe they all enjoyed it to a certain extent, but he really did. Now there was a motive. He wanted to get married.
I want to get this girl.
Yeah, and we talked about it all the time, right?
Yeah.
From like 14 up to like 19, and it's like, but it worked, right? It's like he was ready, and it's like it's pretty exciting. So this is a joy. You can't see it as stress, and my day is now ruined. It is an age of opportunity. And Lori, if you're listening, don't bring this up.
Don't ask me we need to talk.
Yeah, because I still have a hard time too.
I do too. Zane knows this.
Yeah. I
Well,
do. I do
I'm
too.
58. My kids are almost done. You're just in.
I'm gonna start texting people. Hey, we need to talk. They're like, oh no, what's going on? I just don't know if you want if I pick up all later.
Well, I think
Lori, call me when you get a chance. What happened?
I think the majority of people I know are either people pleasers, which
Yes.
means they are gonna really struggle with doing conflict.
Yep.
And then the other end of the spectrum is whatever the opposite of a people pleaser is.
Everything's about them.
Yeah,
You
and
wrecked my comfort.
and
Narcissists.
There you go.
And they are totally fine with conflict. And both ways are kind of like the extremes. But I think I wanted to read. I put this on here. It's kind of a long verse, but 2 Corinthians
We
5,
love long verses.
18 through 20 says, all this is from God, who through Christ reconciled us to himself and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That is, in Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and entrusting to us the message of reconciliation.
Yep.
And so, I love that because it's obviously talking about what the gospel does, right? The gospel reconciles us to God. Whenever Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, there's now this conflict, this cosmic conflict between God and his creation. And Jesus bridges that conflict. He resolves it.
Cosmic War, one could say.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That was fancy.
Isn't it?
Cosmic Chess Match.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great book, by the way.
Michael Heiser?
No, this was
No.
kind of a crazy guy, to be honest. L.A. Marzulli. If you're listening and you think now we're nuts, please don't.
Oh, L.A.
L.A., if you're listening,
We're not
go on the
recommending
podcast.
that book, and we're not having
Actually,
LA on the
that's a great
podcast. Anyways,
it's a fun
Zane, keep
one.
talking.
But resolution is something that Christians do.
Yeah.
It's like it's a part of our testimony, and it's what we're called to do. Our ministry is reconciliation. So if we're not able to do that with our brothers and sisters in Christ, how are we going to be able to do that with a lost and broken world? So I think
If we can't do it with our kids, how are we going to do it with our brothers and sisters
Yeah.
in Christ? But we do, sadly. We'll take a position in our church of counselor, elder, and our kids are nuts. And it's like,
and we'll be in everyone else's conflict
Yeah.
and helping them resolve it. But
you're a nut.
very true. Yeah, I was gonna say something else, but the nut comment.
It's okay.
Sorry,
It probably
I
wasn't.
threw you.
It
Yeah,
probably
it's
wasn't
fine.
important.
It
Yeah,
wasn't.
So I think an important thing to go over with the parent-child before we move on to child-child is the parent has ultimate authority of the home.
Yep.
And if you're doing everything with your discipleship and you're doing modeling healthy authority in all your other areas of life, that won't really be questioned until sometimes when with teenagers or as they get older and more angsty. We talked about this a little bit last week with especially older boys and their moms.
Yeah,
So how do you deal very briefly here with the kid kind of bucking against conflict or the walk away or the roll your eyes like you're just crazy, you always want what you want sort of thing?
Yeah, again, you have to be discipling. I know that's all we ever talk about, but it's like, because it's all that ever works. If you just go from like fire to fire, right, putting them out, you're wore out, man. You just get tired. It's like parenting isn't fun anymore. This is just what is going on. So either you keep them busy by entertaining them, always something fun, always something just like distracting, or you can just start ignoring everything, and your life begins to fall apart. So in discipleship, right, because the question specifically was,
You don't remember?
I don't.
Okay. Well, let me ask you let me get more specific. So if you have a 15-year-old who every time mom's trying to have a conversation with him and he always rolls his eyes or he always walks away or he shows some sign of like disrespect or I'm not really here for this, is it appropriate when they're that old to talk with your spouse and still come up with every time he rolls his eyes, this is exactly what's going to happen?
Yeah, 100%. There's a verse in Ezekiel which talks about the ravens of the valley will like pluck out the I think it actually says the rolling eye or something like that. This is discipleship. So I would tell them, because I tell the future men boys this all the time. It's like, I'll tell the parents, you need to have this conversation. Where as a father, you're telling them, look, I've got, 4 teenage boys or, 2 teenage boys, whatever. When you guys are in conflict with your mother, understand I would allow no one off the street to come in this home and like have a conversation with my wife, roll their eyes and say, you're stupid, or roll their eyes and walk away, or push their mother, or like cuss their mother out, or raise their voice. And, I would physically attack that person because you would. She's your wife. You love and protect her. And it's like, so why do we let our kids do it? I mean, because literally, boys will punch their mom, or they'll push her down, or they'll say something horrible about her, and it's just sort of like ignored because they don't know what to do. So in your discipleship time, right, if you're reestablishing a relationship and it's kind of got to this point, you got to lay down the ground rules, again, in the moment of non-conflict and say, when your mother says this has happened, this is going to be the known, like, where we go now.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to figure out what works in your home for consequences. And again, we'll have on the schooling site, okay, what kind of consequences can you do within your own home that are effective, right, for these ages, right? Maybe it's 0 to 8, 8 to 10, 8 to 15, whatever. That'll be on there. And maybe a podcast or call in and ask your questions. Say, hey, we live, in the city, or we live in an apartment. What can we possibly do for consequences? Or we live in the country. What can we do?
Yeah.
But just ask. And ask others within your church, within the school group. You're going to need other people's thoughts on what works for consequences. And then the main thing is just be consistent. Right? So you can't let your son begin by rolling his eyes, begin by walking away from a conversation, or daughter, obviously, because it will turn into, literally violence.
Yeah.
Because there's the whole, like, this goes back to no man hath at any time ever hated his own flesh, but loves and cherishes it. We all are protecting our own agenda. And if you and your wife are in agreement on, here's our like tactics for consequences, here's our tactics, here's our expectations, like our rules, right? It doesn't become about you near as fast. And with your kids, if they know when I do this, this is the consequence, this is what's going to happen, this is the next logical step. Mom's not just grouchy. Mom's not just mad. I did this.
Yeah.
And if you can calmly look at them and say, well, you did X, right? You didn't do your homework, and now you're mad because mom took away the video games or whatever. It's like, you knew this would happen. It's written down. Why are you mad?
Yeah.
I tell kids that all the time. I don't understand why you're mad. I just came home from work. I haven't seen you all day. I miss seeing you. Sure, I get it. You're frustrated because you didn't get your stuff done, but why on me? If you ask that question, it sort of dumbfounds kids sometimes. Like, well, I don't know. It's like, okay, well then don't, right? And if they continue, there's a known consequence for that. And that sounds like, all these rules. It's like, yeah, but it ends quick if you're consistent, right? You may have 2 or 3 weeks of like a lot of kids getting in a lot of trouble, and then it tapers off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important also for parents, as you're like having those conversations, just to have in your mind and realize what is the heart of the conflict, or what is the heart of conflict. Usually pride and selfishness are involved. There's discontentment in your children and them not getting their way. And so that has to be addressed, maybe not in the moment, maybe later in discipleship. But ultimately, like, what you want to be training your kids, and really yourself, any of us need to learn, is conflict isn't about winning, right? Or like, you shouldn't go into conflict with this desire to win, because if that's how you view conflict, then you're never going to win. Actually, you're going to lose, your relationships. You're going to lose respect. You're going to lose trust, all these things. But if you go in it with a heart to reconcile and to honor God in that conflict, then you're going to be somebody who's a peacemaker, which is what what Jesus tells us to be in Matthew. So I think that's really important, just in understanding the heart of conflict, which will affect, because there's a million circumstances. We can give you a lot of examples here, but you're going to eventually come across a conflict situation that no one's ever heard of before.
Sort of.
Well, no.
That you know of.
The Bible
They're
says
all-
nothing new under the sun, Zane.
I know what you mean. It's new to you.
The heart of it, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this isn't like a how-to on every situation.
Right.
I would say this: if you're unsure or you feel like you're at an impasse on something, especially with older kids, and it is sort of new, and it's like for a fact this can't continue, but I don't know what to do right now. Just tell the kid. Just be honest and say, you know what, this situation doesn't smell right. Something's wrong here, and I don't exactly know what it is, and I'm just being straight with you. So we're gonna take a break for a minute, and we're gonna when your dad comes home, we're gonna ask him about it. Or like I had a guy tell me last week, this was super interesting. This father was calling me about his son, and his son basically made a move where it physically hit his wife, and he wasn't punching or anything like that, but the move was rebellious and the action wasn't right. And I think this dad was like very wise, and he wasn't sure how to respond. He knew there was anger there, and he knew he wanted to respond. He called the elders of his church, and they said X, Y, and Z. They just told him, do this. And their answer wasn't necessarily right, but it was like he had accountability in that, so he knew he'd follow through. His son knew, okay, this is a big deal. And yes, it wasn't exactly my intention to physically harm mom, but if my response had been different, right? If I'd have been submissive or obedient, then I wouldn't have harmed mom. And so an outside party, right, with a lot more objective perspective, right, or subjective, I should say, it's like they're not mad. They want to help your family, and he listened. I mean, he I guess he should. He sees himself as being under their authority, and it's like, okay, I asked their help. I'm gonna do what they say. So that was I was very encouraged when I heard that, and I even told him that. I'm like, this is awesome that you do this. We all should do this, right? But when you don't know what to do, and you haven't talked about it before, rather than saying something and then your spouse coming in later and saying, well, I wouldn't have done that. Let's do this. It just creates this chaos and this tug of war with your kids. Just take a step back and say, okay, we got to figure this one out.
Well, I think that does two things. Ephesians 4:26 through 27. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. I feel like in marriage especially, the big part there is do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. Maybe it was just us, but I feel like I always heard that in marriage. But the first part of that verse is interesting because it says, in your anger, do not sin. It's not necessarily calling your anger a sin, because I think you're going to get angry, like whether it's your spouse or whether it's your kids, like anger and emotions are going to flare up. But in that, don't sin. So like in that moment with the dad, I think going to the outside influence in that aspect, it just protects you more than anything, in that you're not sinning against your kids or your spouse and whatever, and it's making you right before God, because he is under the authority of the elders. So whether or not they gave the right answer, quote unquote, I think he's still right before God because he's following the authority God's placed over him. And so I think that just protects you more than anything.
Yeah.
I think to be super practical on the conflict, because I think we didn't really talk about child-on-child conflict, but truly it's the same things we've already talked about. And it's not going to be that different, except in the fact that you're going to have to get involved in a lot of it. Yeah. And you're going to have to basically model the same things we just talked about, because it's going to turn into parent-child conflict at that point probably, because you're going to have to discipline. But I think the same thing we already talked about, which is have the standards already established before. Like, oh, when you hit your brother, this is exactly what happens. Like, this isn't new, because your kids are probably going to hit each other. And if you're my twins, you're going to bite each other. Yep. And it just happens. But
and with the boys, right? Teenage boys at Future Men, I'm always telling them, you got to do the opposite of what you feel.
Yeah.
When this kid's like bullying you or making fun of you or messing with your stuff, the Bible says return good for evil, not evil for evil. And it's the hardest thing ever, but it will take away that power from him. It will take away that gas, because he knows he's riling you up. And if you just compliment him or say, it's got to be appropriate and not weird, right? But it's like just somehow, hey, I'm not mad at you. I don't want to be mad at you. I'm not trying to hurt you. I don't want this conflict. I'm praying for you. Something super simple, and the kid does not want to say it, but it's crazy. They'll stop it'll change everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've talked a lot about just anger in general, or violence a little bit. We've given some examples there. But a lot of times how conflict isn't being resolved is it comes out in passive aggression. That you did talk about, like the eye roll, or like gossip or slander, those types of things. Whenever that like starts going around, it's like, if you're a party to it, right, then you're somebody that should be like talking about how, there's a biblical precedent on how to handle this, right? Like Jesus literally says, go to your brother if you have fault against him and tell him directly like what his fault is. And then at the end of the day, you win your brother, right? The goal is reconciliation. The goal is to win your brother back. The goal isn't to go and like tell everyone like how they like made you mad or like frustrated you or something like that. And that's something that's like personally been a huge struggle for me in my life because I am so passive. I will have like a negative interaction with somebody and then I'll be like going to tell my friend about it, or I'll, just fume about it myself or write in my diary. I don't have a diary, but
good clarification.
No,
I have a journal,
but
a leather-bound journal.
I think that's often more the temptation than like actual like brutish like anger or like violence or anything.
So and I think we're done here. Let me say one last thing for the parents because I think this is enormous. It's called conflict resolution, right? So once you've dealt with it and you've worked it all the way through, the kids have asked for forgiveness, you've got, you're back at peace again, don't bring it up.
Yeah.
Because parents, the kids, it's the most discouraging thing when a parent says, oh, see, I knew this would come back.
Did
Same
it again.
You. Yeah, you always go back to this. And it could be true, but those comments don't help. It could literally be a stupid slip up. And especially if a kid has had a pretty bad habit of something, it could be vaping, it could be slander, it could be
cussing in the kitchen,
whatever it is. And I get it, when they do it again, it is frustrating because you think, why are you still doing this? It's so foolish or whatever, it's dumb, it just irks you. But when you say that, the kid sees like, okay, it's been 3 weeks. All that stuff was nothing.
Yeah.
Or it's been 3 hours.
Like, why even try?
Maybe, or 3 days,
Yeah.
exactly, and they won't. And they'll lose hope in you as the person guiding them because they see your sin. It's funny because at Future Men, all the mentors have to be discipled. That's part of the deal. And it's like they struggle with the same sins all the time too. Mm-hmm. And I'll watch them week after week come in and confess, I'm trying to change this. Please help me. Pray for me, whatever. And I'll watch them with the kids, and I'm like, did you forget about that mirror? We got to balance our own lives.
Yeah.
So, but that's an example to them. So anyway.
Really quick before we finish here, super practical. Zane, you wrote a 3-step framework: express, address, resolve. Mm-hmm. So the express and address, we've really gone over. The one thing I want to touch on, which just means like you have to address it. Don't be passive. Yeah. With kids, I think we're rarely passive. I think parents usually want to address it. I hope so. If not, well.
Parents are really passive aggressive with teens, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with each other. And yes. Address it with your spouse. Address it with your teens. But really quick, when it comes to resolution, because we've said multiple times, ask forgiveness, and we go on. Growing up, and I've realized this is not the norm from talking to friends, and like when Jules and I got married, this whole concept was a whole new thing to her because we would fight, and at the end, she'd be like, I'm sorry for doing that. And I'd be like, I don't care about I'm sorry. Which was, I wasn't seeing her heart. But growing up, we were told, I'm sorry is for mistakes. Forgive me is for when I sin against you. And so I think teaching your kids that difference is actually huge. Like if I drop a glass of milk and it breaks in the kitchen, I'm sorry, that was a huge bummer. Makes sense. If I cuss at my wife, which I don't do, just for the record.
You do.
But great.
In the kitchen?
Then it's my responsibility.
Milk.
It's my responsibility to be like, hey, I sinned against you. Will you please forgive me for doing X? And I think in there is the resolution with whatever conflict it is, because I think you are having to truly humble yourself and ask them,
that's key.
Will you please forgive me? And it forces them to be humble to say yes. And when you say yes as a parent or as a spouse, you're saying, which is what you just said, I forgive you, which means I'm not bringing this up again. Yeah. And I'm not going to hold it against you after this moment. And so you both truly have to humble yourselves and come to the agreement of like, as Christ has forgiven us and he says it's done and I'm not bringing it back, so we have to forgive each other in the same way. And I think that in there is a true resolution, not like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry your feelings got hurt because I was mean."
Yeah.
You know, I've said that before.
That phrase
That's bad.
irks me.
Yeah, I know.
But it's true.
I'm sorry
That's-
about you.
That's everybody.
So I think just to end on that, you have to make sure it's truly resolved. Ask for forgiveness. There is a difference. And I think that's a great thing to model with your spouse because it actually forces you to truly humble yourself and ask and humble yourself and give. And both of those are huge and hard to do at the end of a conflict. But like we said, that's our 3-step framework. I'm sure you guys have your own ideas here, your own tips and tricks. So if you want to share those tips and tricks, or if you want to read others, go join the school community. It's the top link in the show notes. And it is just a group where we talk a little bit, but our whole goal in that is to get you guys to talk to each other. So you're hearing from other parents and you guys can actually get to know what other people are doing other than us, because we are the first ones to say this isn't about us. We don't really know all the answers. We have answers that have worked for us, but you can have something totally different that works for your kid. And every kid's situation is different. There's divorce, there's adoptions, there's fostering, there's all sorts of things. So get in the community. You'll hear a lot of different opinions. If this is helpful to you, if you're still listening, please like and subscribe, leave a comment, share it on YouTube, share it on Spotify, share it on your Instagram. Just share it.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything. It's very helpful to us. It helps us grow, helps us get in front of more people, and hopefully help more people. And thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week.
Sounds good.
Bye.